Hi, and welcome to this week's episode of the IVMV podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts. My name is Corey, and I'm joined by the other two hosts of this podcast through a Google Plus Hangout.
Hello, it's Andy.
And Bert.
Oh,
I
Bert.
mean Kurt.
Inside joke.
Yeah.
Not really. I guess if you listen to our podcast, you know what it is. And I'll just give you a little preview. Not this week, but next week I will read an iTunes review, and Andy has a different name too, apparently.
All right.
Nice.
So I'll give you that to look forward to.
I don't understand. There's not as much variety with mine. Well, maybe.
I don't know.
There aren't any indie ending names.
No.
As many as there are ERT.
I think it's more just for fun. I don't think it's anything close to your name at all, Andy. But
All right.
so you're gonna have to listen next week for that to hear the big reveal of Andy's new name. To
Can't wait.
Corey, named Bert. Well, we record these episodes every week on Sunday evenings, in addition to the podcast version that you can get in iTunes, Stitcher, and all of the podcasting apps or on our website. You can also watch us live by going to ivmv.com/live at 8:30 p.m. Central on Sunday evenings. Kurt, welcome back. You weren't here with us last week. And we talked about you taking your 2-year-old to Wrigley.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you listen to the episode?
I did. I noticed you guys sort of questioned my sanity on.
I think I
material.
listened to that part to see how it came across, and I think that we sounded more critical than we really were.
No, I understand. I understand what you were saying. I know it wasn't a jab at my parenting or my child, but I think my kid has a sort of strange disposition for a 2-year-old. He's incredibly chill, and not to say he doesn't throw his tantrums, but he's pretty chillax. I mean, he sat through the whole game and just kind of he just watched the airplanes fly overhead, and he really enjoyed himself. So, no, there were no child-related issues with our first visit, but it was a pretty special experience, I have to say. There was a point. I posted a picture on Instagram of me walking up from the lower concourse to the main level. Our seats were way up high, but we went down below and had my wife take a picture of that. And honestly, when I popped out for the first time and knowing this is the first time he had ever seen this view, I got a little bit emotional. I won't lie.
Yeah.
I felt the tears coming. I didn't actually cry, but you could feel that. I could feel that feeling coming on. But yeah, it was really, really cool. Probably way more for me than him because he's not going to remember this. But he did get his little certificate, and yeah, it was a lot of fun, and it was a great day. It was supposed to rain.
My daughter has her certificate displayed on her dresser.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. So I'm gonna get some pictures printed and put it in a frame with the certificate. But no, it was a ton of fun.
That's cool.
I'm glad we did. It was a really spontaneous last minute thing for us to go, and I'm glad we did.
Well, I would assume that the occasion was to see Solaire's home debut.
Yeah, it was. It was. And he did not disappoint. So.
Yeah. So did you get goosebumps? Were you I'm witnessing? This is what we've been waiting for.
Well, there was a little bit of that, and partly it was sort of for my son to be able to sort of tell him in the future, you saw that your first time at Wrigley was his first time,
right?
First time playing, and so at least to say that to him, however many years down the road, if it works out for Solaire, which I think it will,
right?
To sort of relay that him.
You're going to tell him that your first
when he flames out
was Jorge Solaire's who, Dad?
He's like, what? Who? But yeah, it was pretty cool. I mean, that was the first big debut I've ever seen, so it was neat. And the crowd was cool. I mean, it was just nice to be there and just sort of be around everybody and everybody. It
was there an
huge
excitement in the building?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, it was, I guess, less than I expected, but perhaps that's because of our, where we were. But yeah, I mean, certainly people cheered when he came out for the first time. But
you were being a crummy dad, putting
yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't know. That's cool to be able to,
Yeah.
I mean, he's only going to get that once,
Right, and two, I mean, he'll obviously go in the future, but I didn't plan to take him this early, and my wife and I were like, we knew that if we stayed home, we'd be sort of like, we'd lay around all weekend, and it would kind of suck, and then your
Right.
3-day weekend would be gone, and you'd be like, what did we do? So we're just like, all right, we're going, let's do it. So
Yeah,
it
that's
was
cool.
really spontaneous.
Cool.
But yeah.
Well, I'm glad you guys had fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I also wanted to note too. We've talked a lot about like the mascot and like different takes on that and why they're doing it, making it family friendly. And this is the first time I've ever gone, with my son, obviously, and they're doing a lot and they're doing a good job. I think they're doing the best they can, and I noticed it. Like I had never paid attention to it before,
Right.
but for the first time, going to like the little Clark's Clubhouse, which is small and out of the way. If you don't want to go, you don't have to. But going in there, he loved that. All the like stewards. There's a lot of like retirees who are the stewards around, and like they're
Right.
so engaging with the little kids, and they do a great job. So I do want to give them a shout out and say like they're doing a great job of trying to make families welcome and have more for them there. And I appreciate it more now, obviously with him. So, but yeah, I think that was really cool.
I think if you don't have kids or you don't take your kids, I think it's easy to say like, no, I like Wrigley the way that it is. I like that neighborhood the way that it is. But actually, Delana was out here today, and we were talking just kind of about the way that baseball is changing and the way that the fan experience is changing at ballparks and stuff. And I was just saying, and we've said this before on here, but like when I take my daughter up to Wrigley, like it's the neighborhood I think that's the toughest. That if she's got to go to the bathroom, which she does like every 10 minutes, then it's Taco Bell or McDonald's if we're not in the ballpark, and when I saw Ricketts in Peoria, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago, and they did a press conference there that I was able to participate in, but he brought that up and talked a lot about just that it's a great place to go if you're meeting up with the guys you went to college with, or if you're going as a family. That neighborhood is not conducive to just spending a day with kids up there.
Yeah, and that's
and that's
that
going to
needs
change.
Work. Yep.
And it's going, and I kind of like it that the Cubs are potentially, who knows? I can't even keep up on this, all the renovations and neighborhood stuff. But
you shouldn't even try.
No, but if everything is built the way that they want, there will be things in the neighborhood for families to do. And yeah, I love going to baseball games. I love going with you guys. I like doing that. But at the same time, it's a generational thing, and baseball, it's America's pastime, and you want to pass it on to the next generation and beyond. And so I think you have to have that. There has to be some sort of, it has to be available to families, and sometimes it feels like it's not so much up there.
Yeah. We did buy him one of those tiny little bats,
Yeah.
In a souvenir shop, and it was kind of hilarious because there's little fake signatures on it, half of them no longer Cubs, which is awesome.
Actually, you thought it was a smaller bat, but it was Darwin Barney's replica. It was a used bat.
Well, he signed it. It was like Barney Samardzija.
Somebody had to do hand over hand with Barney so he could sign
it. But he loves that thing. He won't leave the house without it.
Nice.
It's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, the Cubs have started. Sorry.
Are we going to say that they caught the injury bug? Is that where you're going?
Yeah. Hold on. I got an edit there. I can't.
Clap.
Yep. That was my computer freaking out on me, and I had no clue where I was in my agenda. All right. Hold on just a second. I'm sorry.
It's fine.
starting to get a cough, so I'm trying to be quick to the mute button. But
oh no, it's fine. Well, the Cubs have started to bring up some of the bigger pieces from the minor league system, and I think it was right after Soler got called up. We were talking about how really the first half of the lineup of the batting order was made up of players that very well could be like long-term players and players of what the future of this team is. And the Cubs were playing really well since the All-Star break. They've been playing well for quite a while, and it felt like we really might get like a sneak peek of the future here in September. And then we lost two of we're calling them veterans, right? I mean, that's what they are to this team. So. Neither seem to have suffered terrible injuries, but I guess this shows us that it's the Cubs and things can still go wrong. And even if you have a good lineup put together, things can still go wrong. So the first to go down was Rizzo, and it looked like it'd just be a few days, but now he hasn't played in almost 2 weeks.
Yeah, he felt his back tighten up in a game apparently in the Red Series, and shortly after that happened, the game went into a rain delay, and so that was a rain delay of about an hour. And then when they resumed the game, he still was having trouble getting it to loosen up, and so he ended up getting an MRI just to see if there was any sort of structural damage there, and they found what was, in quotation marks, a mild low back strain. So he is shut down indefinitely, and many are reading into that as meaning done for the year, and I hope that's right. I hope they don't try to rush him back or bring him back unnecessarily. So you can pretty much expect a Valaika-Olt tandem at first the rest of the way. Olt played there today, and he seemed to handle the position pretty capably, and it's frustrating on the one hand because I was getting really excited to have the prospects join Castro and Rizzo, and I was really excited to see the lineup of the future more than what we're seeing right now without Castro and Rizzo. And so I was pretty frustrated in that way because it put a little bit of a damper on my enthusiasm for watching the Cubs in September. I still am enjoying watching them, minus this Pittsburgh series, but anyway, yeah, I hope they keep Rizzo out for the rest of the year.
I don't see any point in rushing him back, and I guess and we'll get to Castro in a second, but I think if you had to, not that you want anybody to get injured, and especially knowing that these aren't serious injuries, I guess this sounds bad, but I'm glad that it's not Baez or Soler, like one of these players that really does need this time in September. But you still don't want to see either of those two guys ever go down. So then on Tuesday, Starlin Castro went down, and if my DirecTV would have gone out about 10 seconds after he hit the ground, I would have been convinced that his career was over.
His ankle was just completely mutilated.
Yeah.
It looked super bad.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't... the injury itself, because of the angles immediately, it didn't really look too bad, but his reaction to it was pretty scary.
The angle I saw wasn't too horrific, but Len and JD kind of did talk about how bad it was, but yeah, he slid into home really, really awkwardly, and just like you said, his reaction was pretty severe. So yeah, he's probably out for the year too, and I think for the same reasons. There's no reason to rush him back. They've kind of said, "Oh, we're not shutting him down," but
didn't he say that he's determined to come back?
Yeah, he said he wants to sort of beat. I think the timeline had been like 4 weeks to return, and I think he's sort of said, "Oh, I'd love to beat that." But even if he does, I mean, he comes back for a game or two,
right.
And then what's the point?
His attitude is pretty different than Rizzo's. Like Rizzo's like, hey, if they shut me down, then that's what happens.
Because
Rizzo wants a new clubhouse. He's like, I ain't playing until this clubhouse is done.
Well, Rizzo's going to say that because he's like, yeah, okay, Valaika, go ahead. Here's your option.
Yeah, exactly.
Castro's like, wait a minute.
I need to be in there.
Well, speaking of that, so yeah, Baez took over immediately and has played there ever since. And he's looked pretty darn good at short. So I mean, today he made a couple of stellar plays. I didn't see. I heard him on the radio, but from the way Pat called them, they were pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's something too. That down the road, I mean, it's really when injuries happen, not if they happen, but when they happen. The Cubs have some players that can kind of play all over the place because they're sliding them into different spots and stuff like that. I mean, it's good to have some guys. Say Baez is playing second base and he gets injured. Well, then Alcantara can come up there and be just fine. So I guess that's one good thing about having such athletic players that can play a variety of positions.
Yeah, and the timing. I mean, like you said before, you don't ever want these guys to go down, but A, the injuries don't seem to be severe. We hope they aren't, and two, or B, I should say. And number B, the timing is okay, and that there's only a handful of games left, and sure, we'd love to see them play, but it's not gonna be a huge deal for them to be shut down early, get some rest, come back next year fully healthy.
Right. Yeah. These are not injuries that are going to carry over till next year. Well, I don't know. I mean, back injuries are crazy.
Yeah.
So I guess that concerns me a little bit that I have a back issue, and granted I don't have access to the trainers and
massages daily.
The medical things that are available to Rizzo, but I know that things linger and sometimes don't go away. And I mean, we kind of saw, Derek Lee. I mean, he had his hammy issue, but I mean, he also had a back issue in there too, and so I don't know. You don't want to see your main guys ever get injured, but it appears that these are not serious injuries. But
until we hear otherwise, I think that's what we have to assume.
Right. So I looked at the lineup for today's game, and you had Alcantara, Baez, Coghlan, Valbuena, Castillo, Olt, Kalish, Watkins. And, that's a little less exciting than the September that we were kind of preparing for. Alcantara, Baez, Castro, Rizzo, Soler.
Yeah, I was pretty disappointed when I saw that lineup today. Kind of deflating a little bit, honestly, especially after the first two games of the Pirates series. And then you see that lineup there marching out there today, and it just...
That's kind of what I thought, too, after, getting beat up pretty bad in the first two games, and then you kind of trot that one out there like, boy, try to get 1 out of 3 at least. And not to say that lineup's not capable of beating the Pirates, but not as capable as
they sure didn't.
No, they didn't.
So, yeah, I fully expect to not see these guys back this year, and that's fine with me. As long
as they're healthy in next year.
Right. Yep. Well, since it's September, the rosters have expanded, and in the first of this month, the Cubs called up Blake Parker, Zach Rosscup, Eric Jokish, Rafael Lopez, Junior Lake, Arodys Vizcaíno, Dan Straley, Ryan Schlitter, Ryan Kalish, and Mike Olt. So, of course, we saw some of those players play at different points during the season. But of those names that I listed, who are you guys most interested in here in the last month of the season and seeing how they do and maybe give us some sort of indication as to what 2015 may be like?
Okay, I'll go first. No, I think Olt for me, partly just to see if he can turn around the horrible offensive year he had when he was up, to start the season. They sent him to Iowa to try to work it out, and everyone's saying he made adjustments in his stance and his swing's a little bit different. And so far in the couple games he's played, he has improved. He is 4 for 8, and he's only struck out twice, so that's a drastic change from what we saw before. And again, maybe that won't hold up, but early indications are that maybe some of those adjustments have worked out. But yeah, I'd like to see him try to keep it together offensively, because going into next year, that third base spot, at least to start the season, could be his. And so if he can sort of gain some momentum into the end of this year, that could maybe carry over into next year, I think that could be really good for him, because if it had ended, him getting sent down to Iowa, it didn't really improve. That could really hurt him going into next year. So yeah, I'm interested to see if he can early offensive performance. I mean, where he plays defensively for the rest of the year probably isn't going to matter a whole lot because he'll be filling in at first. But next year when Rizzo's back, I think third base is his if he can earn it.
Yeah.
Until somebody pushes him out.
And I just think that I think if he can become kind of what we thought he might become at the beginning of this season, if we can just kind of call 2014 a scratch and kind of have the hope for him for 2015 and beyond that we had for him this season, like I think it makes the Cubs a better team. Say that they call Chris Bryant up, and then because Olt's playing well, you can move Bryant to left field. I think that the Olt Bryant combination, third left could be better than Bryant Coghlan. And I don't have anything against Coghlan. He's been a pleasant surprise this year, but I think that it makes the Cubs significantly better if Olt is able to play like we hoped he would.
Yeah. And he's shown some good signs. I mean, he drove in a run today. He's still hitting the ball super hard when he makes contact. I saw him work a walk, so it seems like he's kind of maintaining the upswing, the uptick that he had going in Iowa.
Yeah, Taylor in the chat says that he's so happy to see he's making contact, and I think that's really if you're going to look at a number for Olt for September, it's that strikeout number.
Right, and if you look at today, he was 3 for 3 with a walk and no strikeouts, which is very un-Olt like. So that is good to see, but.
Pretty unorthodox. I'm so sorry. I'll show myself out.
So Andy, who are you paying attention to most?
Well, obviously, I mean, my main choice would be. I wish I had a joke there, but my main choice would be Jorge Soler. But other than him and Olt, which is another guy I've been keeping an eye on, I think some of the pitchers are pretty intriguing, like Arodys Vizcaino, for example. Brian Schlitter, I was just watching him, I think it was yesterday, and kind of enjoying his performance because he's added a Pedro Strop-like quick pitch to his arsenal. But it'll just be interesting to see how, what these guys do and, who's going to possibly be there next year.
Yeah, I think Vizcaino is pretty interesting too. I think he probably would have been my number 2, because everybody talks about his stuff and how great he is, and I'd love to see how it translates, at least in the short term.
I didn't get to see his inning. Like, he's had one inning so far.
I didn't get it either. I mean, I think it'd be
run, but
yeah, I would like to see him get like into a save situation and just kind of see what kind of a closer he could be.
I do wonder, will that happen though? I mean, with as good as the 8-9,
will they get a save situation?
Will they will they mix it up? I mean, because they've had some success lately,
right?
And the bullpen's been really good. Do you go off of that and say, oh well, let's give these guys a shot, or do you just stick with what works?
I sort of think spring training's going to be a reset a little bit with that, though. I mean, like,
right? Yeah.
Whoever's performing really well when spring rolls around, and if it's Rondon's still pitching really well, then no reason to mess with it. But if he's not,
right. I think I have to say this on every episode, but man, spring training this year is going to be so interesting.
You really need to not talk about it. In fact, let's move on.
It is going to be, I don't know, this is going to be a really exciting spring training.
Yeah.
And not just because we're going. But
it's kind of crazy for me to already be really looking forward to next season, big time.
Right, yeah.
Starting with spring training.
Let's actually I want to take it, we didn't this is off the agenda, guys, but it's something I saw the headline of an article on Cubs Insider, and I haven't read it yet. I have it pulled up, but I haven't read it yet. And I think it was something about, I don't remember what the title of it was, but it's something about, like, I think the idea is, like, are we putting too much pressure on the 2015 team by everyone saying like, "Oh, they're the dark horse. Like they're the team that could really surprise everyone." Is that putting like unnecessary pressure on the team that like we don't really expect them to be a playoff team necessarily? Like I think everybody's kind of like, yeah, I think it could happen, but I'm wondering like if there's just going to be so much buzz that suddenly that will become the expectation and put way too much pressure on these dudes that have like, like, I mean, Baez is going to have what, a month and a half of major league experience, and I don't know.
I think for those people that will come away with those kinds of expectations, it's naive. It's a naive expectation. I think we know it's the playoffs is a possibility, but not an expectation. So I think for people who are going to start expecting
But don't you think it's
world,
a reflection of what their expectations should be themselves, though?
right? Well,
So,
that's
yeah.
the other part I was going to say is that in professional sports, I guess I don't really believe in overdone expectations. I mean, the expectation should always be playoffs, World Series, and then we know that that's not going to happen. But these guys are paid handsomely for going out there and winning, and so I don't really buy pressure.
I don't know
at this level.
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
I mean, if you can't handle that kind of pressure, you shouldn't be there. I mean, if you're not going out there and capable of performing
I'm
at
just
that
saying,
level,
I think. Okay, let's say not so much pressure on. Okay, let me kind of rephrase it or change this a little bit. So, not necessarily the player pressure on the players, but do you feel that if 2015, okay, like right now we're just kind of like, yeah, I think that they might be around, at worst maybe a 500 team, and at best, in like the wild card chase or perhaps at the top of the division. That's kind of like the best case scenario. So if they fall closer to 500 after hearing the hype that Cubs fans and I'm mainly talking about just like kind of like casual and general Cubs fans, if they hear this hype, do you think that a 500 season next year to a lot of people will be considered a failure? And then they'll be like, "Oh, wait a minute, I don't know if this is the right."
I think it will for some, but again, if we see that kind of improvement, I mean, if we do see, let's just say they finish next year at 500, that's a better ball club with guys
basically
who
seeing a
got a
500
full year of major league experience. I mean, I don't know how you can look at that and say, "Oh, this is way off what I expected."
But we've basically seen a 500 team since the All-Star break.
Yeah, and I think that to continue that into next year wouldn't be a huge success, but it would be for guys getting their feet wet, getting their first full year of major league experience. I think a 500 team would be okay. I mean, I'm not rooting for that, but
right. I'm just kind of nervous about the buzz that's being generated. In not like I'm comfortable with the long-term buzz or the 2 to 3 year out buzz. I'm comfortable with that. I'm nervous about buzz for next year. Like I think we should see next year as still part of the rebuild and not like, okay, the pieces are in place. Because yes, technically a good number of those pieces will be in place, but man, you got to give those kids like a learning curve. So.
Yeah. Oh, we'll certainly have plenty of muscle flexes. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Yeah, good point. Well, back to our expanded roster discussion. The player that I think I'm most interested in, strangely, is Dan Straley. You don't remember, he was brought over from the A's in the Samardzija trade, and the Cubs brought him up for one start. I think it was maybe about 3 weeks ago. He looked pretty rough in that start. He pitched 5 1/3 innings, gave up 7 runs. 5 of them were earned on 4 hits, and he had 3 walks. Then he got into Saturday's game after being called up, and he pitched 2 innings. He gave up 1 run on 3 hits, walked 1, and struck out 3. He's kind of interesting because he had some success with the A's back in 2013, or 2012, but especially in 2013. In 2013, he started 27 games. He had an ERA under 4, and he also started one of their playoff games that year. But since then, he's really struggled both at the major league level and the minor league level too. And I guess the main reason that I'm interested in him, in seeing him play this September is that he's probably another Chris Bosio reclamation project, and we've seen Bosio work his magic on players that the Cubs have gotten from other organizations and some free agents too. But especially the players from the other, it's almost like he's kind of like they're finding these players that other teams are giving up on, and I think Bosio probably thinks that he can work with Straley, that maybe that's why he was part of that deal. And I think I'm kind of seeing this as our opportunity to see the before part of the project, and I think if Bosio and the rest of the Cubs coaching staff can get him to what he was back in 2013, then I think the Cubs have another good back end of the rotation guy. So,
Yeah.
Not like a real exciting player to be excited. Not like he's not going to be on the billboards, but
he's a viable major league pitcher.
Right.
I mean,
I think Jacob Turner's like that, but more exciting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which I got to see Turner pitch last week.
Oh yeah.
Which, that's the funny thing about being there in person is like you can actually get a better assessment of a guy on TV than you can from the upper deck, but he pitched well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. I think, unfortunately, man, I don't want to go back to it, but it would be nice if Castro and Rizzo were in there and we saw these other pieces coming together. And I think it's going to be interesting because I think these guys that have gotten called up, they're not the big names. They're not the Solers and the Bryants and Baez's and everything like that. But you can't, you have to also have these other pieces. You have to have the bullpen pieces, and you have to have the utility guys. And I think that's kind of, that group is more of this group that's gotten called up for September. I think it's more of that classification of players, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, earlier in the week, I was thinking about this next topic. And Andy, when you were out here last weekend, I don't remember if we talked about it on the podcast, but we kind of talked about this, and then I also heard Len and JD address this issue on the one of the broadcasts this week. I'm curious kind of what you guys think about this idea that the Cubs are a dangerous team because they're playing loose, and they have nothing to lose, and so they're just going out there with no pressure and playing good baseball. And I don't know. I don't think that the Cubs are playing decent baseball because they have nothing to lose. But I'm kind of curious what you guys think about this.
I think my view has definitely changed after this Pirates series. I think if we would have had this conversation right after the Brewers series, we'd probably be a little more on the playing loose danger side. But I guess there's some truth to it. I mean, their only success, I guess,
at this point.
yeah, is to be the spoiler for some of these playoff contending teams. So they're certainly striving for that, and I don't know. I mean, they looked more dangerous earlier, but yeah, I think there's some truth to it, but it's not everything.
Yeah, see, now here's where I come from, and I think that they're playing good baseball because they're starting to get good players. They aren't a good baseball team yet, but they are a dangerous and explosive team. And I think if the idea is that a team plays loose because the pressure is off, I don't think that you can make that case because, first off, the pressure to contend has never been on the 2014 Cubs. So in theory, they could have been playing loose the entire season. And then secondly, I don't know if the pressure is off. This isn't a veteran team that is out of the race and can now just kind of go out and play and have fun. We've seen veterans get to that point in September where they can almost, like, I don't know, it doesn't seem like it was maybe like 3 years ago or something where I seem to remember like players commenting that like it was almost like they fell in love with the game again. Like it was almost like maybe I'm totally imagining this, but I remember something about like one of them making a comment about how like when the pressure was off, then they could really play the game that they love and appreciate that or whatever.
That
I mean,
seems bogus.
maybe I dreamt that. I don't know. Maybe I just made that up.
That's what Corey
But-
dreams about.
Um, but I think that there's actually quite a bit of pressure on this team and on these
Yeah.
kids.
I agree.
You know,
I think the young guys, yeah, definitely.
I don't.
Well, and the guys who aren't, like the role playing guys, like
Mhm.
playing for their baseball future still, like every
Right.
game is basically a tryout or a tryout for these guys. So I don't
Right,
think
so-
the young players also are just trying to press to do their best, at the
prove that
beginning
they
of their
belong
careers.
here.
Right. So I don't think the pressure's off anyone, top to bottom of the order, really, with the Cubs team right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what that I think I look at the veterans are trying to, like you said, Andy, play for their spots, play for their livelihood, maybe play for their next contracts, the next team, and everything like that. But these young kids, they don't want to go back down to the minor leagues. They don't want to
No.
break spring training and go to Iowa.
And
You know,
Baez
they-
doesn't want to finish the year under 200 batting average.
Right.
Things like that, like little milestones that I think they pay attention to.
Right. So I don't see them going out and being like, "Hey guys, we're going to spoil it for the Cardinals. We're going to keep the Brewers out of it." I don't think that's the case at all. I think they're like focused on playing well for themselves and for their teammates. But I think they're, especially the young kids, are playing for themselves.
And
his
just
BS
to win
is
the
that-
game at hand,
Right, I was just going to say that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I just wanted to get a little bit of credit, sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
Every
No,
time
I was
someone
going to
makes a
say,
good point-
I was actually going to say, like, is BS as the whole cliche one game at a time is. I think that's really what they do. They show up and they're like, okay, we just need to win this game.
Right, you're
I think
looking at
that's
the
there's
picture you're going to
truth
face,
there,
and
Yeah.
yeah. From
So-
now on, every time anybody makes a good point on the podcast, Kurt's going to say, "Oh, I was going to say that."
Yeah, I was just. Oh, sorry. No, what? Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Anyways, but I heard Lynn. I was kind of thinking about that, and then I heard Lynn and JD talk about it, and they didn't really buy that they're playing loose either, and they didn't get into too much detail, but they were just. I think they were kind of saying like, that's not why this team is playing well. It's not because they're just going out and playing loose. I think they were implying it's because it's a better baseball team.
Right. I
Yeah.
think that's the key.
Well, in last week's episode, we talked about the Cubs minor league teams and their playoff chances, and the Cubs have two minor league teams that are still in the playoffs. Kane County was propelled into the Western Division Championship Series by Cubs prospect Mike Olt. Have you guys heard of this guy down in Low A, guys? Mike Olt? Yeah.
Yeah. What is he? I think he's like 19, right? He's playing low.
So Kane County beat Wisconsin 2-1, and then they're currently up 1-0 in the Western Division Championship Series against Cedar Rapids, and I think there's a game going on right now. So if they win tonight, then they clinch a spot in the Championship Series, and that's later this week. So Mike Olt, he was with Kane County doing a rehab stint. He was with them for the 2 games in the first series against Wisconsin. So in the first game, he went 2 for 3 with a home run and 3 RBIs, and they won 7-3. In the second game, Olt went 2 for 4 with another home run and 2 RBIs, and that was the difference in the game as Kane County won 4-3. A little bit of drama around this.
You mean IVMV drama, internal
Well,
drama?
Should I just like screenshot all of our texts and then just post those along with this episode?
We could. It was our group text message battle.
And I'll say that I was annoyed with it before Brewers fans were annoyed with it.
Yeah.
I get it. I guess it just seemed weird to me. Am I wrong for thinking that it seemed weird?
Well, I guess I'll just throw out there that I was in the camp with Corey, and then I'm gonna let Andy.
Oh man, it sure didn't seem
Right.
like it in the.
Well, no, I was
You
super.
didn't have my back in
well,
our text conversations.
well, I was probably occupied with something or something. No, I did
Thought-
too.
no,
I
you
said it
thought
was
an opportunity to make fun of Notre Dame.
okay. No, round one when it first happened, I was kind of quiet, but then I started it up again and said how I thought it was bogus because he hit another home run, and that put them or tied the game or something. So I think I've got a pretty good record of. At first, I was kind of like whatever, but then as the more I thought about it, I kind of it
Okay,
seemed
so-
weird because if it were a rehab, he either if it's a 2-game rehab, just go to Chicago and sit on the bench for 2 days,
Exactly.
or
Why? Okay, so
shut him down. If it's serious, then he shouldn't be playing the rest of the year. He's
Okay,
go-
so let's lay the groundwork of what happened here. So he got injured with Iowa, and he was out like a week. I'm not doing research on this. So.
yeah, well, okay, he was out for a while, like not
Yeah,
a
like a
really
week.
long time.
The DL thing in the minors is a minimum of 7 days. So we know he was out 7 days, but he wasn't out like a long period of time. And so then before they called him up to the Cubs, they sent him to do a rehab stint in Kane County, who just happened to be in the playoffs. And I don't think that the Cubs did this to put Kane County into the next round in
Exactly.
the playoffs. Like, I don't think that's why they did it. But like, it still seemed weird. Like, I still don't understand why they did it necessarily. Because
That's what they always do when somebody's coming off an injury. Like, you don't just stick them into a big league game cold. Like, even if you're only off for a week, like there's a good chance you might be a little bit rusty. So I think
don't know.
the system
man.
is there to serve the big league team, and if they're
No.
still playing, then send them there to play a couple games to get back on. Just shake the rust off.
They don't.
I think that's okay in the regular season. I think Corey probably said this, but in the regular season, yeah. But I
wouldn't
think
mind them
the
making a rule.
playoffs have to matter somehow.
Yeah, make a rule. I don't know, make a
Yeah,
rule,
yeah.
but there is no rule. I mean,
Okay,
If
I
they're
see
still
what
playing,
you're
it's-
saying, Andy. I see what you're saying, but like if the Cubs have someone, let's say Castro, because of his ankle thing, let's say he was only on the 15-day DL, and he gets off the DL. I don't think they necessarily send him to Iowa after a 15. If somebody's been out for
if
like
they're
a
still
month,
playing, why not?
month and a half. I don't think they do though. I don't think they send guys down always to do minor league stints and
I guess I
What do
would.
you mean? They
if
always do when they come
if
back
the
from
Cubs
injury.
if the
no,
Cubs
they don't
season
always do it.
if the Cubs season mattered, I would say absolutely. You don't throw him into the game rusty. He's got to get a couple of at bats under his belt. But the fact that the Cubs season is a minor league season from here on out, essentially. I mean, it doesn't matter. They're just playing games. They're just at bats. They're just exhibitions. That's why can't he just do that there?
Okay, yeah, so they do like simulated games for pitchers. Why can't they just do a simulated game for him? He gets 4 at bats. I don't know. It just
But
it
I
just
would
seems
also
weird, and
I have to concede.
He played
to
first
Andy's-
base in the second game. I mean, you were saying like you'd be mad if you were the Kane County third baseman, but I mean they also foresaw that he was probably going to be picking up some first base starts, so they used it as an opportunity to get him a first base look there down there, too.
like I said, I don't think that the Cubs put him there to help Kane County. But I
Exactly.
think but I think that imagine this. Imagine if like the Brewers or the Cardinals did that, and they were playing Kane County. I think that we would be like, oh, of course, a guy that I don't know. I just it's not even a big deal because next year nobody's even going to remember it. But it just seemed weird, and I was just like that is. And then I used the opportunity to come up with my own internet muscle flexes about Epstein and.
I hadn't really thought about Kurt's point though of the position of the big league club as being a factor worth considering, but
And at the same, they haven't done anything against the rules. Like
Right.
the rules there, you play by the rules. But it did. I guess my reaction is only that it just felt a little weird. Like I didn't break anything or throw stuff against the wall, but
No, I didn't either. Look,
it just
here's
felt
what
a
it
little
is.
creepy.
Here's what
It
it
felt
was.
like a Notre Dame cheating scandal. Like somebody helped them with, like maybe somebody tutored a little too much.
Okay, let me just put it this way. The three of us, in our text conversations, we don't get to argue about the Cubs very often. And so I kind of had opinions one way, and then I decided to kind of like, put them on steroids so that we could at least have a little bit of tension between us.
And then whenever we lack tension, all we'd have to do is shift it to college football, and you two get pretty fired up. So I have no dog in the fight, so I just like to stir
Yeah,
the pot. It is so interesting though how we'll talk about the Cubs and everyone's just like, yeah, cool, whatevs. And then it's like it shifts to college football.
Somebody brings up Big East State.
Things just blow up. I love it. It's so much more fun when we're talking about college football.
But you know what? That's like, I mean, I felt like I used to have a lot stronger opinions on individual players, Cubs players, back when games mattered and stuff like that. I didn't like Ramos Ramirez. I didn't like Soriano necessarily at different points, and so.
Man, but we don't really good old days.
Right, we can't really argue about players. Like now, it's like how the hell are we going to argue about Darwin Barney? I don't know. Anyways, and then the other Cubs affiliate in the playoffs, that would be Daytona. They're still alive in the Florida State League playoffs.
Yeah, still alive barely. They're playing a best of 5. They're in a best of 5 series and in the championship against the Fort Myers Miracle. Sounds like a WNBA team. But they're down 1-2 against the Miracle. The Miracle of Fort Myers. The Miracle that is Fort Myers. The Miracle was up 6-5 in the 8th inning of Game 3. And then the D-Cubs catcher Wilson Contreras then hit a 3-run homer to put the team ahead for good. So they're still fighting, and they made it to the last series. So good on them, and hopefully they can come back and win this thing. But it's looking like it's going to be a tough road to hoe for them because they really struggled to score runs at all in the first 2 games. So we'll see.
I took a look at our chat. Let's go back to the Mike Olt conversation. These guys are in the chat saying the same exact things that I said in my text to you guys. Things
so they're
like
agreeing with you.
Epstein promised us championships. That's what he meant. He was talking about King County. Taylor said Rizzo will be rehabbing in King County tomorrow. Tim said Soler's hammy needs some rehabbing too. Oh man.
We should. This is totally off the cuff here, but we should. This should be like a Patreon perk. Like you give a certain level, you get access to our group Twitter or our group text message feed.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. I'm looking at it now and thinking, wow, this is amazing.
That's a good idea. I kind of like that idea. We might have to work on that. All right. Well, we probably shouldn't let an episode of the podcast go by without actually checking in on Baez and Soler. We've mentioned them, of course, but since we've been so excited about them, we can't brush them aside to talk about Mike Olt playing in Low A and Zach Ross Cup and Dan Straley. So,
well, I've been feeling a little down about Baez, just not really seeming to really be able to make even good contact lately. But then today in the 8th inning, I don't know if you guys turned off the game or watched the game at all today, but in the 8th inning he made 2 amazing defensive plays where the second one he actually fully laid out for it, and then he threw from his knees to first base to get Starling Marte of the Pirates, the guy who's like really fast. So he gunned him down from his knees. It was awesome. But anyway, Baez, he's struggling at the plate. His slash line is 169, 215, and 360. So I'm not that concerned by it, honestly. Like, I think that I'm glad he's getting this taste now, and then he'll have time to reflect and evaluate and come into spring training with a just kind of a renewed vigor and focused.
Yeah, and this is what he does. I mean, at every level he's struggled to some degree, right. And then he lights it up at some point.
I honestly, and I think we probably talked about this when he first came up, but like him struggling is fine with me, because if he didn't struggle, I think sometimes, and I don't know this at all because I've never talked to a professional baseball player about this, but I would think that if you come up, okay, so say he comes up and he hits like 280, and like in the time he was up, he hits like 15 home runs or something like that.
Like Soler.
Right? Yeah. But I think it's going to be hard for coaches to say, oh, okay, here's what you need to work on, because he's going to say, well, I don't need to work on anything. I'm doing fine. I got this figured out. But I think if they come up, they struggle, they identify that they need to work on some things, they're probably open to what the coaches say and the coaching that's delivered to them. I think that they probably, are a little bit more receptive to it.
For sure. And
That'd be my guess.
it's guys like Baez that you get the sense could become uncoachable if they have too much success. I'm not saying he is like that, but like it's usually the guys that have a lot of confidence bordering on arrogance that could eventually become uncoachable athletes. I'm not by any means saying that Baez is like that, but he appears to perhaps have the disposition that would be conducive to that. And so you're right. I mean, we want him to stay coachable and be willing to make adjustments and things like that.
Yeah. Soler's
yeah, he's not struggling like Baez.
No.
He is like, although he is sort of leveling.
Right. I was gonna say he's not hitting like he was.
No. So yeah, he's down to 382 batting average. In Friday's game, the one that they finished up on Saturday, that was the first game that he did not record a hit. So he, I guess we could call that his slump, his one-game slump, because he did get a hit today. But in that game where he didn't get a hit, he did get an RBI. But I think
was that the game where he kind of flashed off his arm strength too?
Well, there's been a couple, but yeah, I think that was the one where he.
I think it was Friday.
That sounds right to me. Yeah.
Yeah. But offensively, yeah, he's a bit of a contrast to Baez, in that his plate discipline and his approach is impressive. And I don't mean plate discipline as in he walks a lot, he takes a lot of pitches. I mean he has only walked twice, but he just he swings at good pitches. He doesn't look fooled. He seems to see the ball incredibly well.
Doesn't have as much of a tendency to chase.
Mm-hmm.
Like Baez does, or expand the strike zone as much.
Yep. So he makes contact. He hits the ball incredibly hard that we've seen. He crushes the ball, and when he puts it in play, his BABIP is 455. So, it's like you look at this combination of things. Like he sees the ball well, he hits it hard, and when he hits it in play, he finds a gap. And he hits it for extra base power. 8 of his 13 hits are for extra bases. So, I know it's early, but just sort of looking at that total picture, like he's already looks a little bit polished, even though he's so young.
Right. Yeah. And it'll be really interesting to see what happens here in the next 3 weeks. In the same way, I don't really. I guess it's not that I don't know. I don't want to see him struggle. I don't know. Maybe sometimes players you want them to head into the next season with that confidence. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. But I think that it's a good illustration of how different players can be so different. This is what Baez does. He struggles and then he figures it out.
Right.
Soler has this weird sort of
ability to
yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I just don't think we should read too much into individual short-term performances, but we can see, little highlights and weaknesses here and there, and not worry too much.
Right. Yeah. So we'll check in with them every week, of course, because I don't think we'd be doing our jobs as a Cubs podcast if we didn't.
But I will say though, the weight has shifted when Soler comes up to bat. I'm way more excited than I like when Baez the first handful of times. I was pretty pumped, and now that excitement has shifted for the most part to Soler.
Yeah, I think Baez's swing still gets me really excited.
It does if he can connect.
Yeah, even if he doesn't connect, his swing is pretty awesome.
It's like Bugs Bunny digging a hole in the ground and spinning.
Right. All right. Well, before we get to some listener questions, we do have a few reviews to read, so I'm going to play some Chuck Mangione, Feel So Good. We had 5 iTunes reviews this week, which is amazing. So thanks to everybody that gave us those. I'm going to spread them out a little bit, so I'll read 2 of them tonight, and we'll get to the rest here in the next few weeks. So this first one comes from Marcus Gilmer, and he entitled it Great Stuff. Gave us 5 stars. Great, smart podcast from 3 guys who genuinely like the Cubs and steer clear of the hot sports takes or overwrought hand-wringing. Honest analysis from a fan's point of view, big plus, that has shades of optimism, and why not with these prospects? Like listening to 3 of your buddies talk about your favorite team, the sides and all, and sometimes bonus chicken noises. And we weren't broadcasting yet for the live viewers. It's not recorded, but we almost had some chicken sounds in here tonight, and we may next week. We'll see how it all plays out. We had deliveries today. We got 2 chicks. Are they called deliveries if they hatch out an egg? I don't think so.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of weird.
They delivered themselves.
They were delivered 3 weeks ago and hatched today. So they were going to be in here, but I decided to put them under a mama hen. Let's see. The next one is from... I was just thinking, like, I can't even edit that out because I'm playing music. That's what was going through my head right then.
There's no need to edit that out.
No. The next review here is from Anthony Hutfuls. I hope I'm saying that right. And the title of it is, Are You a Cubs fan? If so, don't miss this podcast. Another 5-star review, and he says, Corey, Andy, and Kurt provide an outstanding Cubs podcast. Their talk about the Cubs and minors are interesting, entertaining, and maybe educational. The fact they are friends clearly comes through. You can easily imagine yourself having a beer with them, discussing baseball and the Cubs. The quick what are you drinking during the podcast was nice, although some people seem to dislike. The Internet Muscle Flex is a must-listen. Hopefully the photo caption contest returns soon. It is a given that an off-topic conversation will occur at least once a podcast. But that is expected when you are in a discussion with your friends. It is a podcast I look forward to listening to every Monday on my way to work and back home. Okay, sometimes during work too. If you're a Cubs fan, you will enjoy this podcast. If you do not, how can you call yourself a Cubs fan? Well,
ooh,
dang,
nice.
shots fired.
Yeah. So thanks to Marcus and Anthony for leaving us those kind reviews. And if you haven't left us an iTunes review, the next time you're in iTunes, go to our podcast on there and leave a review. And those help us with visibility in searches in iTunes. And then more Cubs fans will find our podcast. So let's get to some listener questions here. First, Hoke says, how about Alcantara and Castro to the Marlins for Stanton?
I think at this point we're kind of excited for free agency and what the Cubs can do without giving away prospects like those, like Alcantara, for example. But I mean, still, it would be amazing to have a bat like Stanton in the lineup.
Right. You add him. Yeah. I think I take that deal. I mean,
well, I think if it's available, you do. But
the one thing, this is what would happen. I think if the Cubs pulled this off, is that our shortstop prospects would fail miserably, and we would not have a shortstop. We would trade the one guy that's established major league player.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I worry about. And I don't think.
But I think risks too.
But I think you don't. I think Castro's a piece if he is a piece, he's a piece in an elite pitching. He's a piece.
Denise the piece.
He's gotta go for pitching, not for another. I mean, I think the Cubs are doing okay in power, but I don't know. I just don't see that that's a need they need to fill. Anybody wants Giancarlo Stanton, but I just don't think the Cubs are at the top of the list for needing him.
Man, but that makes their lineup insane.
It's already going to be insane.
I know. I don't know. I want him.
It's
I like him.
Well, no, like I said, everybody wants him, but
I think some would say the addition of a proven major league, bat that is explosive and hits for power.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I take that deal if it's
Well, yeah, it's just sort of like I forget. You always pick on me for like when I do stats that are like, well, of course, when this guy plays well, the team wins. Well, who doesn't want one of the best hitters in baseball?
right.
Of course. I mean, but I just don't know that that's what they need. So sorry, I beat that one to death.
I still take it. Scott from Alabama says, it's been a long time since I've been paying this much attention to the Cubs and the box score. Next year can't get here soon enough. Is 500 a realistic expectation next year, or maybe even a wild card? Go Cubs, Bears, and Irish.
Wow.
Dang.
Is this
He said it.
Is this your brother?
Right.
Is Scott from Alabama your brother?
Is Scott an anagram for Corey? Oh, no, it isn't.
I think 500 is realistic, and I think we've kind of, I guess if you look at the fact that the Cubs have been close to 500 since the All-Star break, and next year's team should be better. I don't think that's unrealistic at all.
No way.
No. Yeah, we've talked about floor and ceiling. I think around 500 is the floor, and then wild card is the ceiling, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know if I would expect a wild card though. I don't know if he's saying like, is that a realistic expectation?
No.
I wouldn't expect that because
But it's like saying Baez's ceiling is Hall of Fame. I mean, nobody's expecting it, but it's possible.
Well, and then you add like the pitching staff too. Is you never know. Like there have been teams that have like slam dunk pitching rotations heading into a season, and it just doesn't
right.
quite come together. So it's already a little bit of a question mark with the Cubs. They have a lot of options, there's no doubt, but that all has to come together too. So not just the prospects hitting and that type of thing, but they also have to be solid in the rotation.
Right. Yep. Jason from New Mexico says, will Castro or Rizzo play another game this year? Should they? We kind of talked about that,
Yeah.
but I kind of think they shouldn't. Like,
No and no.
yeah, just this year's already kind of a loss anyways, and I just don't know really what there is to gain. It's not like these guys need the playing time. What is Castro's played like what almost isn't he played like over 700 games or something? I just don't think you need it right now.
Right.
Johnny says, much talk about where Rizzo should play third or left field. I think he means Bryant. I don't think he means Rizzo. So where do you guys think he'll end up? And we also kind of talked about this. I mean, do you guys kind of agree it just depends on Olt?
Yeah. I think they want him to play third. It looks like. I mean, they haven't moved him off there yet.
But do you think if Olt establishes himself as a good piece, then and somebody that can play third every day, and I mean, Olt has power. Olt, he can hit the ball. So.
Well, I mean, I guess there's also no reason Olt couldn't play left. I mean,
yeah,
for the same reasons that Bryant could. I mean, yeah.
So where do you think he'll end up, Bryant?
I think he ends up in left, but
I do too.
Because he's so big. I think that's. I mean,
That's another thing. Yeah.
You wear 33, 36s. You don't play third base.
You gotta bend over a long way. Tom says, I don't want Baez to be Junior Lake. What can I do to prevent that from happening? Should I look into ancient magic rituals? If you guys want, I'll be the podcast official mage. Let me know. I don't think he will be Junior Lake.
No.
It's hard to say, though. I mean, I can't. What I'm about to say is absolutely ridiculous, and I shouldn't even say it.
Oh, let it spill out.
Yeah, now you have to say it.
It doesn't stop you in text messages.
I mean, let's admit it. We're stupid fans, and so we can judge things stupidly. I'm just going to say, I think that, I shouldn't even say this, but I shouldn't.
Spill it. Go.
I'm just saying Baez's demeanor, to me, looks like he's determined, and to me, it seems like he would do everything he can to be successful, and Lake just kind of has a different demeanor, and that, like, I'm not saying that he doesn't care and that he's not putting out the effort necessary or anything like that. Like,
Are you saying he needs to get an MLB neck tat?
No, but yeah. So I'm contradicting myself, saying like I know that what I just said is really stupid, but to me, Baez just doesn't look like the type of player that. I think he's going to do everything that he can to make sure that he's successful at whatever level he's at, and I would assume Olt has it, or I mean, I would assume that Lake has that same mindset, but I just don't. I don't think, even if Baez puts up similar batting average, he's also going to provide a lot more power and generate a lot more runs than Junior Lake does.
Yeah, he's just on a different level from Junior Lake. So if he fails, the failure is epic. But I don't know. I think he's just at a different level. He'll figure it out.
You think his ceiling is higher than Junior Lake? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think that's a fair assessment. Yes.
Michael from Colorado says Baez versus Alcantara. Who's better right now?
I think it's all around. That's.
They both played pretty solid defense, I will say that. Baez in his newfound shortstop role. And Alcantara has been surprisingly good in the outfield as a converted infielder.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if you're just looking at like who is more valuable, like let's just look at who's playing better right now. I think you have to say Alcantara is better, you know. He's not going to be better in the long term, I don't think. And if he is, then that's not good. But he's been a real pleasant surprise too. I mean, he went from being like that guy that I was kind of like I was kind of thinking, I don't know, I just underestimated him. And I've kind of underestimated him from day one when he was with Peoria and we saw him, and I didn't think he would amount to anything.
But I think it's easy to do when all you're doing is looking at stats online, and then you finally see a guy play and you're like, holy cow, what how does he hit the ball out of the park when he barely swings, that kind of thing.
He just brings so much to the game, and he's the kind of like utility piece and like the part that fills in between the big pieces. Like those are the guys that can really, make your team all around, successful and just I don't know. I lost my train of thought, but you know what I'm saying. Like those are the kind of pieces you have to have.
Yeah.
Ricky says, I'm no prospect guru, but I'd like to think I know a lot about prospects. The first wave of prospects to join the Cubs has been excellent. Even still, the Cubs have a top 10 farm system after the first wave. That's good, right? Yeah, that's good.
Yep. Yeah.
I forget.
Given that the two best haven't arrived yet, that's
right.
Or at least by numbers ranking.
Well, in looking at like how much excitement there was when the Cubs called up both Baez and Soler, and to know that the Cubs still had the best farm system, or they were right up there at the top. That's pretty exciting, and yeah, there's better pieces coming yet. Tim says, when will the Cubs' young talent end up in video games like MLB The Show? I don't have a game system now, but would like to get one when they end up in games. If anything, I can win the World Series with them if they can't. I don't know. Like the extent of my video game knowledge ends in like 2003, maybe.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably the last MLB game I played would have been about 2002.
I'll admit that I don't believe I've played baseball video game since Bases Loaded. So I really don't know.
Which we have played fairly recently.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I don't think I've played any. I don't think I've played any baseball games after the original Nintendo. I'm just not a big video games guy.
I'm not really.
I kind of wish I was, but I'm not.
Oh man,
I'm a little bit more of a video games guy, but I've had trouble like getting into the more modern baseball games, which is weird, but
yeah, I mean, I would imagine
I do have the home run game on my phone.
You can really swipe those balls right out of the.
No, boom.
I think that I would assume that Soler and Baez would be in next year's. I don't know. I guess I don't know how they decide what players are on or off,
Yeah,
but
I don't
I would
know.
sure think those two would be.
Let us know, Tim.
Right. Yeah. Justin says, "Is it too early for pumpkin beers?" And then Jason says, "It's always too early for pumpkin beer." Which
I did buy a case of Oktoberfest even when it was still August, so
I'm drinking.
kind of falls in the same line.
I'm drinking a sweet potato ale, so kind of a
so am I right here.
kindred
Oh,
beer.
man.
Plus.
I've never had that stuff. I should get some
It's tasty.
next time in the QCA.
Yeah, it's I stopped down at Bent River and filled up my growler last night.
Heck yeah.
It's so good. And then last question here is from Dawn, and she says, "I know Travis was due for a regression this year, but should we be worried? What's plaguing him?"
Yeah, we should.
Don't
be
dig too deep. Don't dig too deep. I've got some more coming. I'm gonna pick on Travis a little later. But yeah,
I thought today
It's
was
not
really
good.
troublesome, especially, and I'll let you talk about him a little later. But man,
He pitched well against the Reds. I guess that's good. He's
he
got
always
enough
seems to
results.
pitch well against the Reds, like I have something to prove, and then it's the Pirates. But I mean, I don't know. I like him, and I want him to pitch well. I really do.
Yeah.
I think he's a competitor, and I don't think he takes games like today lightly or well, and I think that's a good sign. I think he really does have a competitive fire.
yeah. I don't think he's as good as 2013 and as bad as 2014. I think he's somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd agree with you. But it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. I think that's going to really tell us what the future holds for him. And hopefully he ends up, hopefully he does what he did last year, but I'd be happy if he ends up somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thanks for sending in those questions, and I post usually on Sunday mornings and ask for your questions on our Facebook and Twitter, so you can send them to us. And really, you can send them anytime during the week. Wait a minute. I feel like I'm missing one. I feel like somebody sent me one earlier in the week. Shoot. Well, I don't know. If somebody did, I'll find it. We'll answer it next week. I really do feel like somebody emailed me or something. So, so apparently, if you do that, I may forget it.
It's always a possibility.
Yep. So if you enjoy our podcast and you'd like to help us keep the show going, you can do so a few different ways. The first is through Amazon, and if you shop on Amazon, you can go to ivmv.com, click on the Amazon link on the side of the page. You do your shopping like you normally would, and then Amazon kicks us a percentage of your purchase for referring you, and it doesn't cost you anything extra at all. And then we have our Patreon campaign, and this week's episode is brought to you by we have a new associate producer. And the two associate producers that we have are Matt Macer and Anthony Hutfels, and they've really stepped up and supported us at the Ryan Sandberg level. So thanks to Matt and Anthony, and then also thanks to the rest of our Hall of Fame level contributors, Jeremy Dallas from Australia, Sean, Charles, Andrew, Jane, Tony, Shane, and Michael from Colorado. And really thanks to everyone that helps us pay the bills and keep this thing going through Patreon. We really appreciate it. And if you would like to join in the Patreon campaign and get some IVMV stuff for doing it, then go to go to patreon.com/IVMV. It's patreon.com/IVMV. So, Kurt, you kind of hinted at it. You got a little Travis Wood.
Yeah,
frightening.
yeah. I was kind of like digging through this. We were all on a little bit of a high after that Brewers sweep, and then the Pirates came in and kind of knocked us off. And I was looking for something in there, and Travis's performance today really stood out because of how bad it was. So here's the line: he only went 1.2 innings. He gave up 9 hits, 7 runs, all of them earned, with 1 walk and 1 strikeout. And what was it? 3 of those were home runs. 3 of the hits were home runs. So it was that's a really bad outing. And I suppose it's a little unfair to judge a pitcher by his worst outing. They have bad days, but boy, that's really bad.
Yeah.
So let's hope Travis turns it around.
Yeah, that's not good. Scary, Kurt.
It is. Yeah, that's right.
This week.
Is that what this is called? It's scary.
Yeah. All right. So, did you guys happen to find any internet muscle flexes?
Negative.
You know, we haven't played our
I have one.
internet muscle flex song lately. We should play that over this.
There's a song. Oh,
Children of Sanchez.
yeah.
It just kind of sounds like a duel, like a standoff, you know. It's in a western, they just walk out and they're
10 paces, turn around, fire.
Right. Okay, so Andy, you said you have one.
Yeah, it's not really funny. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, I have two. So how about I'll do one, you do one, then I'll wrap it up.
Okay.
Okay, so this first one, it's kind of like Andy's last week. Apparently, there's no punctuation in it at all, so I'm going to just try to read through this thing. Too many Rockies in the lineup today with Rizzo and Castro both down, no leadership in the field, and a lot of pressure on the kids, and now the pitchers are adjusting to Solar. Maybe Olt will help and do not count on Lake. Oh well, let's hope we can play 500 these last few games and that the rookies spend their winter learning to hit major league pitching on a consistent basis.
You spelled consistent right?
He did. He spelled consistent right. Spelled rookies wrong, Rockies, and then Soler is Solar. And so then the comment says, I don't think there were any Colorado Rockies in the lineup today, and pitchers have already adjusted to the sun. Everyone really has.
Oh, man. Oh, that's great.
Oh. I kind of forgot to say, this is the Internet Muscle Flex. Anybody listening for the first time, we go to Cubs.com and look on the message board and find commenters flexing their muscles. It tends to happen in message boards frequently. So, go ahead, Andy, with yours.
Okay, mine's pretty short. Here it is. These guys are basically discussing Baez and his strikeout rate. So here's a commenter. I can't wait till these people clamoring for Brian all year get a load of him striking out 30 to 35% of the time, which is what he's going to do too.
Nice.
I just like that. Like, you see what Baez has done, and then you're like, yeah, that's exactly what Brian's going to do too.
Right. They haven't mirrored each other at all in any way throughout the minors, but suddenly at the major league level, they're all the same.
I think I did find one. Do you have one more, Corey?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'll let you last. I do want to share the title. This isn't from Cubs.com. It actually came from Daily Herald, but the title is Pirates Rock Wood and Sweep Cubs, which is an amazing title for an article. But the commenter says, typical dumb comments by Ricky. Has he made any player better or helped this team at all? No. Dump him at the end of the year.
Oh, man. I love how people just think they know so much. Like,
I know. It's clear Ricky has no idea how to handle young
And you're
players.
seriously going to say that after the year that Castro and Rizzo had?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
just go freaking walk off a tall cliff.
Okay, so here's the last one. And we don't like to give people's names on here, their handles. And I'm not going to give all of this person's, but I'll say that it involves the term Ed Lose. Okay, so commenter 1 says, unseasonably cold today. I don't even have to use the air in my apartment. Is there a lake effect wind tonight? Oh, no, wait. That's just the breeze generated from Baez's swings and misses. Commenter number 2 says, figures, the Cubs finally lose and you show up. And then number 1 says, yeah, the Cubs barely ever lose. And then number 2 says, no, they do lose, just not that much recently. Therefore, you only show up for those occasions. You live for that. And commenter number 1 says, "I live just so I'll be able to shit on your grave someday." Which, I don't know. For me, that just really stood out. Like, that's the kind of internet muscle flex I love. You just take it down all the way to the bottom, just right away.
I'm just man,
Lowest common denominator.
someone is so upset by Cubs losing. They don't take it on the Cubs. They're like, this dude who disagrees with them, I'm just gonna go shit on your grave. That's how mad I am. I'm so mad. It's the only reason I live.
No.
Oh, man. All right. Well, that does it for this week's episode. The Cubs are on the road this week, a Monday through Wednesday series up in Toronto against the Blue Jays, and then in Pittsburgh for the weekend to play the Pirates. Hopefully that goes a little better than their series in Chicago. We will be back next Sunday evening, and you can watch it live at 8:30 p.m. Central at ivnb.com/live. Thank you for downloading, and thanks to everyone that showed up to watch this live tonight. And until next Sunday evening, go Cubs. All right. Man, that was a good internet muscle flex.
That one was incredible.
At first, because it was so unsuspecting. You're just sort of reading. It's kind of like, yeah, this is the normal internet muscle flex, and then that bomb drops.
You live for Cubs losses. No, I live to shit on your grave. Oh, man. Gosh.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Hey, how long do you think a growler is good?
Once you open it, it's only like a few days, yeah.
A few days. Man.
Drink up.
No, I can't anymore. This stuff's... Hey, Andy, have you tried the 7th inning session? It's only like 5%.
Oh, shit.
Uh-oh. There it went.
Oh, man, I dropped my growler.
Don't have to worry about saving it.
What's the 7th inning session? What's that stuff like?
Shoot, I'm trying to remember if I liked it. It was kind of forgettable if I remember.
Yeah.
Correctly. I did
Is it
check
like
it
a
in.
session IPA or like just a session?
No, what is it?
Pale ale or something?
I don't even remember. I think it is like a session ale, is what they called it.
That's the. I mean, usually when you see the session name, it's like a hoppy.
Yeah.
It's a low alcohol happy beer.
Yeah. I'm looking it up on my Untapped because I checked it in recently, but I don't remember it, so it must have been really good.
Oh man, I kind of fell out of it tonight. I think part of it's that like I did my show prep early this morning, and then it was such a crazy day with these chickens and everything. Like I looked at my notes and like it was like foreign to me half the time.
It's not even the kids anymore. It's like it's the chickens.
He's yelling at them to get away from the window.
Right.
Get away from the window.
No, I can't let them out anymore. They were getting killed off. They don't get out of the run anymore.
At all? Like during the day?
No. Like 2 weeks ago, or no, I mean 2 nights ago, I went out there and I let them out for like an hour and a half at the end of the night, and I just sat out there with them. Because I don't know, we've got something. I don't know if it's a fox or coyote or
it's the fantastic Mr.
Cougar.
Fox.
The bobcat. I don't know. Yeah.
I gave 7th inning session ale three caps, and it's an American blonde ale. So it's only 4% ABV. So you're right, Kurt. It's like a light feel good type of beer, but I remember it just being kind of light and not that flavorful.
It's probably
those
like
beers
a
are
summer
really hard to brew.
baseball.
They're really hard to brew. I mean, to make them flavorful enough that you remember them, but also low alcohol. That's really tough.
Yeah.
Andy, speaking of coyotes, did you hear the coyotes when you were out here camping last weekend? Like maybe like an hour or two after we went to bed.
I think I was sleeping. Why?
I don't know. They were like really close and like super loud. There was like 2 packs
Coyotes
of them.
and cougars.
The last time I camped
weekend.
before this most recent
No,
one?
last weekend.
No, but the time before this last weekend, I think I was maybe the only one out there. I can't remember when that was. It was a while ago, but I heard them really close that time too.
Yeah.
It made me kind of nervous. Honestly,
Small,
I looked at I got the hammer from outside the tent and brought it inside my tent.
The Bear Grylls
Like I'm gonna
knife.
protect myself with a freaking hammer.
Like they're gonna unzip your tent.
Well, I mean, okay, would they need to unzip it? Like,
I don't know, man. They're not that big. They're not that big.
Yeah, it's like a
Right.
medium-sized
So
dog.
good. Then I'll just be able to hit them on the head with the hammer, and they're done.
Cut 'em up
Like the
with your
time
knife.
when Ian slept in his car because he was scared of them and had it in. It was super hot. It was in like July, and he just turned his car on and had the air conditioner on, and his window cracked a little bit, and then was laying in his car in his underwear with a knife in his lap. Like in case that, and I just pictured him like a coyote like reaching its paw in to unlock the door.
First grabbing the knife.
Like no, the coyote like unfolds a wire hanger or whatever. Like makes a hook.
Click.
All right.
All right, I have to pee
I
and go
gotta
to
go.
bed.
All right. Yeah, Tim said I should get a trail cam. But you know the problem
my
with
uncle's
that
got
to-
one of
to
those.
figure out,
Yeah.
basically to figure out what's getting the chickens. But the problem is they range all over the place, and so I don't even know where they're getting nabbed. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I wanted to get one of those trail camera things when we heard that cougar to put it like back by the campsite on one of those trees.
Boy, if you got a picture of a cougar, I'm not camping out there. Not that I do often.
Yeah. You'll be fine, Kurt.
Yeah, right.
I'll
I'll
keep
be
you
I'll be
safe.
like the guy, like, oh, yeah, I thought it was cool. But then one guy got eaten by a cougar. Ruined it for everybody.
He didn't have his hammer in his tent.
His toes were sticking out the end of his tent, so they just ate his feet. All right, I gotta piss.
All right.
I'm going to bed.
See you guys later.
See
So,
ya.
yeah.